Sometimes you just gotta theologically geek out. Today's one of those days. We're nerding out on CHURCHepreneurs today. Let's get into it. I'm geeking out. Welcome to CHURCHepreneurs Podcast. My name is Richard Moore. I'm your host and informant for everything church, theology, and faith related. CHURCHepreneurs' vision is to accelerate the church in mission, vision, and effectiveness in fulfilling the Great Commission in our communities. CHURCHepreneurs hopes to embolden you to fulfill the Great Commission beyond your own borders into the rest of the world within this generation. In this podcast, I talk about everything that's moving me in relation to church and theology, hopefully to empower you in your ministry, church, Bible study, theological understanding, and most importantly, your personal growth in Christ. Today, like I said, we're going to theologically geek out. And what I've got here in the studio on my desk, I hope my desk can hold these up. This is Kittel, what you call Kittel. It's the Theological Dictionary of the New Testament. And I have my copy here. This is my volume set. And over here, I've got a special treat in the studio with us today. This is one of my colleagues moved some of his books in to the office the other day, and he moved in his set of Kittel, which is Greek study of the New Testament words. Every theological word that has any theological significance in the New Testament is codified and explained in depth. Some of them not very in depth, but most of them, all the theological words in the New Testament are explained in the Theological Dictionary of the New Testament by Gerhard Kittel, originally published in German in I believe the late 30s, early 40s, and translated by Bromley in the, I guess we'll find out. It's interesting. This version right here is the original owner was theologian, expositor F.F. Bruce. And when my colleague told me that, I started to geek out. I'm like, no way, really? Like, come on. And it really was. This is, first of all, what every pastor should have in their office. They should have a copy of the 10-volume set of Kittel. My wife bought it for me for my birthday. It's one of the best birthday gifts she's ever given me. I don't know if you can see over here. It's well used, well loved, and definitely note and highlight and everything. So this is my Kittel. And over here on this side is the personal copy of the personal volume set that belonged to F.F. Bruce, famous theologian and commentator. I believe F.F. Bruce wrote some 40 books, theological books, commentaries. I'm reading right now by him, The Hard Sayings of Jesus, and it's brilliant. And so when my colleague bought this in and he said, this is the original copy, the original owner was F.F. Bruce of this Kittel, it blew my mind. So today I want to go through this, and he's actually got personal notes of F.F. Bruce in here, personal writings, personal reviews. So F.F. Bruce, I think what it was actually happening as you can go through this particular volume of Kittel, and you see he's received or marked in the books themselves the year with which he got them. And I think he was actually from volume 1 writing reviews of each release of when they translated it from German to English. And he wrote his review, and he'd put the review in the volume itself. And so each volume has like a review of it. I don't think not every single one, but most of them have a review that he wrote, and you can see it then typed F.F. Bruce. And I'm going to show you all that today. I'm excited. I've got so much stuff laying around here today. This is going to be like a show and tell, literally I'm geeking out here. The other day I looked through the whole thing and looked at all the personal notes that he had written. He had some handwritten notes, some typed notes, and all with his like signature and F.F. Bruce at the end. And so we're just going to go through this. There's some really gems actually in here. So this is my Kittel set over here, relatively new. I mean, you can see it's kind of shiny still, right? And my little Kittel up here. So if you can't afford or get the whole volume set of Kittel as a pastor, you ought to have it if you can. I mean, I had the little Kittel. My dad had given me this a long time ago, and this was helpful and super helpful. But once I really started preaching, teaching more, I use this every time I prepare a sermon. I'm old school, man. I use Logos too, but there's just nothing like putting your hands around a book and flipping through and finding it. And I don't know, I'm old school probably, but I'll tell you, the other night I found where you can buy this on Christian book distributors for $130. That's nothing in comparison to what its value is. I use it literally every time I prepare a sermon. So if you have a tough word in your text and you pull this bad boy out, it's brilliant. You just have it right there. Logos for me is good, but it's sometimes hard to use and hard to find what I'm actually looking for. You can go right here. You can go grab the 10th volume, look up your word, and boom, then grab your 3rd volume or wherever your word is in each volume, and have a great exegetical layout and description of what your word is, historicity of it, etc. Little Kittel is a minimum, I think, but $130, you can find that somewhere and get this. And I'll put that in the description link, the link to get that full volume set. This is absolute must. This is what every pastor should have in his library. And I have it on my top shelf, and man, I literally grab it every time. And I pulled it down just to show you this is a must have for churchpreneurs, those who are ministering the gospel, preaching at any time, teaching even the scriptures. You got to have this in your library. A quick few stories just to the Kittel itself. I'm going to open up here and make some room. I always wanted a Kittel. I always wanted it. I always wanted the full volume. I had the single volume, and it helped, but I always wanted the full set, and never really expressed it. I guess maybe here and there. I guess that's why this happened. But I always wanted it, and my wife found it on sale for me for my birthday one time, and I just about erupted. It came in the mail. I think it was in a box, and she had just give it to you the whole time in a box, and I thought it was great. My father also has an incredible story of this volume set. He had the Kittel as well, still has it to this day, the full Kittel, full volumes, 10 volume set. And he, one time, they were really tight in money. Grew up as a pastor's kid, so I'd never felt like we were tight on money. But as I look back and as I understand what my dad and mom went through in raising us and being a pastor and planning churches and being in seminary, he explained this story to me afterwards, and it's a story of God's provision. It's a really sweet story. That's why I'll share it, and I think he'd be quite okay with me sharing it. They couldn't make their rent 1 month, and really scrounging pennies together. They were young in ministry, young pastors, just fresh out of seminary, and didn't have a lot of money. The income for the church was not consistent. Young church plant, and so he didn't have money for rent one time, and he was thinking. He had talked to a buddy pastor of his, and he said, I've been interested in selling my Kittel, or they talked about the Kittel, the whole volume set, because at that point it was super expensive. I'm sure. I think actually, as I look in F.F. Bruce's notes, each volume was like $25, and I guess that at that time in the late '60s, mid to late '60s was quite a bit of money, especially for pastors. But he had the whole volume, and so he was talking with a pastor friend of his, and the pastor said, "Oh, Ray, I'd love to have the Kittel. It's expensive, but I just love to have it." And I think he could have made a couple $300 from it at the time. 25 times 10, $250 at least. So he mentioned it to him. Yeah, I might be willing to sell it to you. But they just talked about it, and then came time that their rent was due. My dad, the next day, rent was due, and they didn't have a cent in their bank account. And he thought, he really felt the Lord leading him. Hey, go sell your Kittel, and go talk to your pastor buddy. He went over to his house, middle of the night, in the evening, and knocked on his door and said, "Oh, hey, Ray, what's happening with you? And come on in, we'll talk." And so he came in and told him, hey, you are thinking about my Kittel. Would you still be interested in buying that from me? And so his friend said, "Oh, Ray, yeah, I'd be interested, but not right now. I don't think I need it. I don't think I have, not quite interested now, but maybe, yeah, and then I guess my dad was probably quite disappointed at the time then. And then his friend asked him, he said, but Ray, do y'all need the money? And that's just the leading of the Spirit, and he said, yeah, we do. We need to make rent tomorrow. And so he said, well, Ray, let me just write you a check. And he wrote him a check for the rent. And God provided, so I look at my Kittel and I think of those stories. I think of, and now I have this copy of F.F. Bruce's personal Theological Dictionary of the New Testament. And I just was giddy, So my father's story, I have that background. My wife buying me my set, and these are really my I couldn't let go of this. I mean, it'd have to be really desperate for me to let go of this 10-volume set that my wife bought. Now we have to be starving. So. My colleague bought these back in. He wanted to store them here instead. And I thought, man, this is cool. Can I go through it? And yeah, it's really interesting. In the volume are handwritten notes, student graded papers. There was one graded paper where a student got a 15 out of 20. Sounds like about what I would get when I wrote my theological papers. And then what else is in here? So in each volume, he's got his own written review that appeared in different magazines. Then he actually has some of the clippings of the magazines. Let's see if I got one. Here's one here. It's so you can actually see in the bottom there, if I can focus it, F.F. Bruce on the bottom. This appeared in what magazine is this? January 1969. Doesn't really say what magazine. The Witness. So it appeared in the magazine The Witness in 1969 of January. Just some wild stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'd just like to totally geek out with y'all. If y'all would bear with me and watch with, I'm going to go through and have a look at what some of the volumes and show you the papers and show you his own handwriting and just have a look through. So hang with me. We're going to do that now. I'll put mine to the side. Ooh, and not drop it. Awesome. Now, so let's do this. Let's see. I'm going backward then volume. I have volume 10 somewhere. Where'd I put it? Is that it? So this is going backwards from 10 to 1 down at the bottom. Yeah. Volume 1 there. So this doesn't have anything. I think I took these things out of it. So that's volume 10. And then we've got volume 7. And he had written his handwritten name, on the to show it belonged to him, and then also the date. And I think what happened is he would get them as they came out. So these are some of the originals. He wrote in a review, one of the reviews, that Bromley, who translated, could do, if he did 3 pages of translating from German to English, 3 pages a day, he could translate the whole thing in a year, each volume. And so each new year, a new volume came out. And so this is, let's see what we got here. This is F.F. Bruce, 1972. And so we're going backwards in time. And here, I'm just going to see if I can show you. There he is. And he has his review of this volume, I guess, in the middle. And this is interesting. This is Exegetische Wörterbuch zum Neuen Testament. And that's exegetical lexicon to the New Testament. So I don't know. It's really interesting. He's got his handwriting up here. It's wild. Like, some of these things are like, what are they? And so I'm just geeking out. It's just it's just too much fun. Sorry. Then he's got here a book review. Let me put this out of the way here. He's got a review. And you can see on the last page here, it actually says, if I can get close, maybe, F.F. Bruce in the bottom corner there. I'm just geeking out. So this one's about the review of volume 8. So that's his personal review that he wrote, and then, of course, sent it to, I think The Witness magazine was maybe where he relayed most of his reviews. Then this is volume 10. So I don't know, I had them out of order a little bit. And then something odd, I just found an envelope, and like SCM book room. Funny. And it's so old, it's stuck to the envelope. So, yeah, it looks like a book lending thing from a library, maybe. And volume 10 has all the indexes in it. So if you're ever, this is where you search for your word. You're looking at a scripture. So this is Ezekiel. You want to find a scripture, one of the words in Ezekiel 13. So you're looking at Ezekiel 11 all the way to 13 on this page. And you can find all the words in Ezekiel 13, 10. Anyways, that's 10. Let's see what we got here. This is volume 9. Got to think on my Roman numerals, So here's, this is interesting. This is then the book review that he's probably clipped out of magazine itself or the Theological Review itself. If you can kind of catch that, book reviews. And then, of course, at the bottom, his name, F.F. Bruce. I've not seen much about his life. I'd love to see some kind of documentary or something made about his life. Here it says, F.F. Bruce, April 29th, 1974, posted for something, 8374. So it's his, again, I think he's, like I said, it seems like he's getting each Kittel as it comes out and then writing his review, putting the date when he received it. Some of these theologians, of course, would get the books sent to them, delivered to them, and they would then review it. They would give them the book for free. And so that might have been what was happening here. I'm not sure. It's all sort of just like awesome speculation on my part. And then here is one. This is the volume 5, F.F. Bruce, August 1968. So it seems like either he got it then or, that's when he wrote it in there. So it's got kind of a cool handwriting. Yeah, there's that volume. Then we've got, what else do we got here? Oh, these are really interesting. This is F.F. Bruce, June 27th, 1967. And we've got some sort of scratch. These are all sort of scratch papers too. He's got his he clipped this one out as well. This is a review as well. But it doesn't look like it's from him. From Howard Marshall. And of course I didn't read everything, but I read all the stuff. Evangelical Quarterly. And so that's a review there. And then also just hand notes. These are, this looks like, however, not his handwriting. The discipled Jesus ordering is in the New Testament. The discipled. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's hard to read, his handwriting. But then on the back side, so he used every side of paper. He's definitely environmentally friendly guy, using every side of paper. Probably paper was pretty expensive, I guess. Typing out, and this is as well his review of volume 4. Sorry, gotta think about my Roman numerals again. And then this side, this was interesting, is a student of his, University of Manchester, some kind of form, almost like Margaret, someone, Walmsley, was checking something out. Very interesting. If Margaret Walmsley was his student, I would love, that would be so cool. You see this video, probably not alive anymore. Well, maybe 60s, like, yeah, that'd be awesome to connect in some way. Anyways, that's that in that volume, a little sort of more historical and just sort of, I don't think there's anything else in this volume. Yeah. I'm so geeking out. So, I don't know. It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, come on. Then we've got May 27th, 1966, and a paper by a student. Like I said, the student got a 15 out of 20, if you can see it here. Sounds like my grades back in the day as well. And then on one side, the handwriting of a student writing about Pauline epistles, pastoral epistles, and very interesting, and probably better scholarship than students in our day and age. And then on this side, he writes his review, types his review as well. So this one was a pretty good review. It just talks about the words and I just wonder, did he type this and write it before? He talks about words like additions, like evangelion, kurios, propitiation. Oh man, it just let's see, where was that? That was in this one. Talks about the translation process, and that Bromley was a very astute translator, just a brilliant man, and no other person could have done it. He actually said beside him to translate it from German to English. Very well done. I don't know if I should read it. It's too long, probably. Yeah, just some really cool information. Then his own personal bookmark in this volume. Let's see if we can. Oh, one thing he did say, this is really interesting. He said, some books, when you review as a reviewer, as a theologian and reviewer, like I've probably done a lot of books reviews for, and he said, some books you read and some books you just don't really read as you review them. You kind of skim, you give the idea and you review it. And he said, but there's some books you read cover to cover, and I've done it twice. He's read, he was talking in that review, he's talking about volumes 1 and 2. He had read, he said, sometimes you just don't read those books you review, but some are worthwhile enough and worthy enough for you to read. And I've read these twice, cover to cover. That's what he said. Great F.F. Bruce. I guess they're worthy to be read. I only use them as reference, and they're valuable enough just for that. And he believed they were valuable enough to read cover to cover, and they were. And he's right. I can't say not. But it's just a matter of having the patience to read a book like this twice, cover to cover. Then we have another. This is F.F. Bruce. No date on this one. This is volume 2, I believe. Yep, volume 2. And he's got his notes in here. This is interesting. He talks about sozo as a good entry into this, the word for salvation, saved, delivered, etc. And then, of course, his signature right there at the bottom with the typewriter signature, F.F. Bruce. It's really incredible. This old paper too. It just feels like you're holding something in the hand by just a man of God that just loved the Lord and wanted his gospel to be preached and proclaimed, and to give people like you and me tools to help us do that to the best of our abilities. This is in this, and he's got handwritten notes on the back too. So this is actually his handwriting. Let's see if I can show it. This is his handwriting, kind of tell because it matches the other stuff on the book covers. That's his handwriting style. Man, this is really fun. Really fun. And then the last volume, he didn't have anything in here besides stuff in the back, and these were clippings. But I wanted to read something from him that he had written. So he wrote a review on back of papers. Of course, this was one of the fuller reviews. It's stapled even, and it's the review of volumes 1 to 9. So it's interesting. I don't know if he wrote every single volume a review and then maybe the end 1 to 9 or 1 to 10. But then he wrote something here, and it is another review as well for volume 9 only. And then on the back, he has it's a scratch of something. I think it's his own, and the title is just Worship. Let me read it to you. In view of the reference in the New Testament, it's almost like it's a test or something, because there's questions and then he answers. And it's hard to tell if it's his answer, but I can only imagine. And you'll probably be able to tell why. I think it's his answers. In view of the references in the New Testament to the singing of psalms, Should not some provision be made for this means of praise by Christian people? Are not the 150 Psalms implied in these references? So the answer comes then, it looks like the answer, no doubt, it's indented. No doubt the references to the Psalms in the New Testament do include the Old Testament Psalter, but possibly over other hymns of praise as well. But there is provision made in most Christian groups for singing suitable parts of the Old Testament Psalter. My native country in Scotland, he's got some things written in and added in, like he's correcting it. In my native country of Scotland, we have traditionally had the whole metrical Psalter bound in at the end of the Bible. Even in England, most hymn books have a selection of versions of the Psalms, though they are not always recognized as such. For example, do we remember that when we sing, Jesus shall reign, or Hail to the Lord's anointed, we are singing a version of Psalm 72? Or that, O God, our help in ages past, is a version of Psalm 90. I should not care to restrict congregational praise to the 150 Psalms, as do some Christians, for whom I have specially high esteem, but I should prefer to do that, meaning prefer to have the Psalms only sung, than to have to sing some of the ditties that pass for Christian praise in this generation. That's great. That's in the 60s, I guess. That's great. He'd rather sing. If it's going to be between one or the other, then let's stick to the 150 Psalms. If you're going to make me choose between these dumb ditties we're singing these days and Psalms, then I choose the Psalms. That's great. So then he's got another question. Since our worship ought to be offered to the Father, this is really great. Reference John 4, 21 through 24, Colossians 1, 12, Hebrews 13, 15. Why are so few hymns, certain collections, addressed to him, to the Father, the majority being addressed to the Son? Is not the Father thereby robbed? And his answer, I do not suppose it is possible that the Father can be robbed. So good, right? I'm reading this and I'm thinking like, man, what a man of God. Finished the race well. I'd give you an example. I didn't realize kind of how the circle would come. It's just part of your curriculum when you're in Bible school. I took Romans, and I was able to read through his book on Romans, F.F. Bruce. That was our textbook. And I just remember how deeply impressive it was for me, and how forming it was in my faith and my walk and my ministry. Romans, to me in Bible college, was a deeply forming class, and F.F. Bruce played a huge role in that. And so this is the last volume here. Thanks for geeking out with me today. I just want to close with some thoughts. F.F. Bruce obviously had a spiritual legacy. It's in his books. Some 40 books, plus reviews of books, plus commentaries, plus sermons. I'm looking back now at old sermons. I found an old sermon online on YouTube. I could post that in the description here as well. And it's just, man, what a legacy, And so it came to my thinking today, like, what is your spiritual legacy? What would you hope your spiritual legacy to be? 2 Timothy 2:2 says this. Paul encouraged Timothy at the time, and what you've heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. I think F.F. Bruce really realized that. You can see that. I'm watching actually in his papers as I'm going through the other day and looking at his writings and his corrections of students' papers. His belief that 2 Timothy 2:2 ought to be taking place, and he's actively in these books passing down a legacy, what Paul preached here in the presence of the things you've heard me say. F.F. Bruce believed this. It's clear. And trust to reliable men who will also be able to teach others. That's why he taught. That's why he wrote. That's why he wanted this Kittel to be in English for those generations who would follow, who could also teach others. And I'm just so grateful I have a Kittel that I can, that some of the fruit of his labor can be passed on, and Bromley's and Gerhard Kittel. And it's just incredible. And as you read his paper on worship, you see his love for the scriptures. If it's between silliness and nonsense that we see in modern worship and the scriptures, I choose the scriptures. That's the pattern he took. If you look at his writings, your legacy might not be able to arrive at the theological level or work of F.F. Bruce. That's not what we're getting at. But your legacy can be the same, because we can entrust the gospel to faithful men who will also be able to teach others. You look to the future by looking to the men and women who will live there. I don't know how long I'm going to live. I hope to live a ripe old age, but I look to the future, and we as churchpreneurs ought to look to the future by looking to the young men and young women right now who are alive who will live there. The gospel goes from generation to generation by the witness of faithful men who faithfully transmit it to the next generation. And that's what I've seen. That's what I experienced the other day as going through F.F. Bruce's personal Kittel volumes. It was just such an honor to see, to be a part, to have a little look into his life, his testimony, his witness, his work, to pass the gospel down from generation to generation. He looked to the future by looking to the men and women that were in his care as he taught, and gave him a 15 out of 20. And other students that he wrote, his handwritten their names in some form or whatever they needed to be students and to check books out or what have you. The gospel goes from generation to generation by the witness of faithful men who faithfully transmit it to the next generation. Barnabas to Paul, Paul to Timothy, Timothy to those he discipled, until our generations, and F.F. Bruce, his students, and me. I was a student of F.F. Bruce in Romans class. Although he wasn't my teacher in that class, he was my faithful gospel witness from generation to generation. So I just hope and pray that this will be an encouragement to you, churchpreneur. Your legacy might not be, like I said, so big as F.F. Bruce, but you have a legacy. You have a spiritual legacy that you can pass on and entrust the gospel to faithful men who will also be able to teach others. Look to the future by looking to this generation, people who will live there. So God bless you. Thanks for watching and listening to this episode of CHURCHepreneurs Podcast. You can find out more information at my website at richardpmoore.net. I also blog at richardpmoore.blogspot.com. You're welcome to follow me on Twitter if you do that kind of thing. My Twitter handle is at richardpmoore23. You can also email me at churchepreneurs@gmail.com. That's CHURCHEPRENEURS gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for a podcast or any comments or questions, please reach out to me on one of those platforms. God bless you. Until next time, take care.